Today I'm going to show you one of the most important jobs that homeowners must do that takes relatively little time but can ultimately be an incredible time savings. This is a job that's done in the fall before the first freeze sets in. And what this is about is turning off the water that supplies the outside spigots. Now, the first step here is to identify all of the outside water spigots. Most homes have at least one, but some have two or three or more. So what I'm going to talk about is, for one spigot in particular, pertains to any other spigot where if you turn the faucet on, you get water flow. Any faucet that's outside that does not have a water flow when you open the spigot, you don't have to worry about. So after identifying each of the spigots, what you need to do is go to, in most cases, to the basement of the house and identify where the spigot, you see it enters the house here, but where it continues into the basement. So in the basement, we can see that the water pipe from the outside comes into the basement here. It flows around. Usually it's going to be against a wall, and at some point, hopefully more sooner than later, it comes to a junction that will look something like this, where there is another spigot. So the first thing to do in shutting off the water and bleeding the line is to take the spigot here and to turn it off, which is going to be turning it clockwise. So with this spigot now off, there is no longer any water flowing to the outside spigot. However, this entire line is still filled with water. And in the winter, especially at sub-freezing temperatures, the entire pipe, especially that which is closest and in the spigot itself, can freeze and burst. So we're going to prevent this from happening by emptying all the water that comes from the basement, which we're presuming is not going to freeze, onto the outside. So now we're going to return to the outside spigot. Okay, back at the outside spigot here. So very simply what we're going to do is we are going to open this spigot by turning it counterclockwise. Now what that does more than anything, while a few drops of water will come out, it's letting air into the line. And you'll see why that's important in a moment. So after the spigot is open, we go back to the basement. Back in the basement now, we go back to that junction where the shutoff valve is. So what you'll notice is that below the shutoff valve, there is a little knurled knob. It looks like this. This is a knob that's attached with only hand tightening or thumb tightening. There's actually a little hole in this valve which helps airflow and water flow. But what we're going to do is, what's going to happen is that the water that's in this entire section of hose that's left is going to flow back from this pipe across it this way, and it will flow out of this valve. Remember, because the water shutoff is on, no water can flow in this direction. So the water we're talking about, once again, is just the water in this stretch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully unscrew this this valve. Now, I know from prior experience that the water is going to leak out. So what I've done is I have put a small container on the ground right below that place. There's not going to be a lot of water, but unless you want water splashing on the floor of your basement, it's a good idea to have something that's going to catch it. So returning here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the knob and I'm going to turn it, of course, counterclockwise. And as I turn it, water begins to drip, as you'll see. Now I could turn it all the way, which I'm going to do until it comes totally off. And that water is coming down and going right into the bucket. And there it is. And I'll watch it until all the water is dripped out. Now again, this is the water that's in this section of pipe. It might take 30 seconds or so, but it will drain. And then once you're comfortable that all the water, or most or virtually all of the water, has been eliminated, what you do is you take the cap and reattach the cap, and again hand tighten it. Don't use any tools because it will strip very easily, and it's designed to be hand tightened. Now there's one more step that we need to do, and that is that we need to return to the outside faucet. Now we're back at the outside faucet, and all we have to do simply here is remember this outside faucet was open in order to allow air to flow that allowed the water to drip out from the basement. But at this point we don't want it open anymore, so we tighten it. One of the reasons we tighten it is because in the spring, when we turn the water back on, if this spigot is open, then we're going to get really surprised because the water will immediately be turned on for this faucet, and because it would have been open, water will go all over the place. So again, the last step here is turning the faucet off from the outside. That's it. We'll talk again about what you do in the spring.